These are the plaintiffs, Jonathan and Lindsay. Jonathan says he just returned from active duty, and he and his wife purchased a home from the defendant. 2 weeks after moving in, it became evident the attic was infested with bats and mice. His wife wanted to move out immediately, but cooler heads prevailed, and they decided to get the situation corrected. The defendant had to have known of the infestation when he sold them the house, and they're here to recoup the $5,000 it cost them to get rid of the little buggers. This is the defendant, John Cacase. He says he bought the house, never lived in it, and flipped it after only 6 months. He had no idea there were any problems concerning bats. Heck, he's never even seen a bat in his life. Besides, the plaintiffs had the house inspected, and if their guy missed something, how's that on him? He's accused of driving home buyers batty.
All parties, please raise your right hands. Be seated, come forward. Litigants have been sworn, Your Honor.
Thank you, Douglas. Jonathan and Lindsay, you've asked us not to use your last names, and we'll respect that. You are suing the person you bought your house from, John, how do I pronounce the name?
Cacase.
Cacase. John Cacase, for $5,000. You say your damages actually exceed your statutory maximum in cleanup and air purification and attorney's fees that you had to go through because, according to you, he breached his contract when he sold you a house that ended up having bats and rats. Have I got it? More or less?
More or less, Your Honor, yes.
Tell me your tale of woe. Go ahead.
Okay. Again, thank you for the opportunity.
You don't need to lean forward. We're good.
Oh, I know. Okay. Thank you for the opportunity to be here today. And after my wife and I had returned from active duty after multiple deployments to Iraq.
You were both in active duty?
I was, and she was alongside with me.
Yeah, I was not.
Thank you for your service, and thank you for your service.
And we decided to leave active duty to return back home to be closer to family.
Is this your first home?
Yes.
This is our first home, Your Honor, yes. The Army doesn't afford you many opportunities to purchase
Right.
homes. Immediately after we purchased the home, I hired a contractor, my brother, William, to partition the upstairs attic space, which is going to be used as my son's bedroom.
Okay, how old's your son?
He was 18 months at the time. He's now 3.
Okay.
Immediately after he cut into the ceiling, he noticed that dead mice, dead bats, bat guano-laden installation that was literally soaked all the way through the installation.
Bat guano is bat feces?
That's
yes.
correct, Your Honor. And large quantities of pest feces fell from
How about the actual
ceiling.
pests themselves?
They were dead at the time.
Okay.
And I do have a letter from my brother indicating all of the following if you'd like to see, Your Honor.
Okay, and did your brother take pictures?
I did.
Do you have pictures of the actual bats?
There is a photo that I provided.
Go ahead, show me what you want to show me. Oh, look at that.
That's one of many, Your Honor. And
This is inside of the what?
this is directly below the gable end roof louver in your house, basically the side of your house, Your Honor. And if you were to look directly below, which is what I did, you would have seen 4 inches of the thick tar-like substance spanning from corner to corner of the house, approximately 22 linear feet of 4-inch thick bat guano, dead bats, mold
Wait, you
spores.
saw it when you did what?
This is after my brother had contacted
but
me.
he took up, this wasn't visible to the naked eye when you were inspecting your house, right?
No, because we were going off of the disclosure form in which Mr. Cacase.
We'll go to the
listed that
disclosure
there was
form
no-
in a second. You paid an inspector to inspect
did.
the home. Did the inspector tell you that you had all this cleanup to do?
He did not.
Did you call the inspector about that after you saw this?
I did.
And make a claim against them?
I did not.
I guess I'm curious, why did you choose to go against him instead?
Because he knew about the issue.
How do you
And
know he knew about the issue?
Because my neighbor, Rob, he is a local town police officer, and he had much dialogue with both Mr. Cacase and Brian Reck, who's beside Mr. Cacase.
Do you have an affidavit from him?
I do, Your Honor.
Thank you, sir.
I live directly across the street. I am friends with the original owners, Chris and Laura Conklin. Oh, who sold it to you? You
Correct.
bought this house to flip it, right?
I bought it to flip.
Okay.
If it didn't sell, I was going to live in it myself.
Okay. What did you do to fix it up?
It was a cosmetic renovation.
Okay. I live directly across the street and I am friends with the original owners of the residence. Over the years, those residents, the people who sold it to him, commented on the bat and flying squirrel problems they had in the attic of their home. While visiting them on many occasions, I could see bats and flying squirrels enter and leave their home from the roof eaves. In January of 2011, they sold their home to the defendant. I met the defendant and his carpenter, Brian, that's you?
Yeah.
And I would speak with both of them from time to time about the repairs they were making. The defendant told me of the deplorable condition of the home. I informed him about the bats and flying squirrels that have lived in the attic for years. And he told me he knew about them and that he was going to fix that problem as well. Is that true?
No,
Wow, he's
There
pretty
was-
explicit about it.
Your Honor.
it is.
Put your hand down. I wasn't asking you a question. One day in the summer of 2011, I saw Brian, come on up. He stated he was putting in a one-way door to let the bats and flying squirrels leave the attic. What work did you do vis-a-vis the bat issue?
The siding was peeling off the house, and underneath that siding, there were 3 or 4 bats that were there.
Live or dead? I guess dead.
They were alive.
They were alive. Okay.
I put up a bat door, which is enclosed on the top and the side, so the
Yeah,
bats
but a
could come
bat door
out.
for the siding?
Yeah, because the siding
What
was
about the
peeling
attic?
off the house. There were no bats in the attic. There was nothing in
Well,
the
no,
attic.
there were bats in the attic because we know that there's all kinds
Well-
of feces of bats
Well,
in the
there weren't-
attic.
there were
And then
no
we
live
have a
bats.
neighbor saying that the prior owner knew about the problem. Did anybody inform you about the problem?
When I purchased the house, we went up into the attic. We looked to see
Listen to
if
my
the
question.
roof-
Did they inform you of a problem?
No.
Okay. When you purchased the house, you went into the attic.
We went into the attic just to make sure the roof wasn't leaking, and there was no evidence of anything living up there.
Okay, but according to the neighbor, he says, I told him about the bats and the flying squirrels that have lived in the attic for years. And he told me he knew about them and he was going to fix that problem as well. Did that conversation take place?
No.
One day in the summer of 2011, I saw Brian working on the north side of the house. And Brian told me he was installing a one-way door for the bats and squirrels to leave the attic. Did that conversation take place?
No. No, because it wasn't for the attic. It was for where the siding was peeling off the house.
When you purchased the house earlier that year, did the sellers, the original owners of, well, I don't know if they're original owners, but did they have do you have a disclosure form?
I didn't get one. It was
You didn't get a
foreclosure.
disclosure. How does it work in your state? They pay you a amount of money and
I think they knock like $500 or $300
that's how it works.
off.
They can pay you $500 and say you're on your own?
We're done. Yeah.
And is that what happened? Right. And what happened in your sale to him? You didn't pay the $500 and say
No, I filled out a disclosure to the best of my knowledge.
Right.
We worked on the house
Was this an
almost
as-is
every
sale of
day.
the house?
It was.
Okay, you dispute that it was an as-is sale of the house?
This was not an as-is sale. This was not a short sale, Your Honor, or a
It's not a short sale, it has nothing to do with it.
and it was not an as-is sale. And I do have my real estate.
So it's a warranty sale. Let's see where there's a warranty. Seller agrees to sell and buyer agrees to buy for the purchase price and upon the terms and conditions stated herein, the real property with all buildings and other improvements thereon and all appurtenances thereto in the same condition as they were on the date of buyer's signature. This is an as-is sale. Okay, but that doesn't mean you're out of the water because if in fact you know that there's a problem and you don't disclose it, which is why you were referring me to the disclosure form in this case. Termites, insects, rodents, pest infestation problems, answer no. Okay, so you have to answer that to the best of your ability. If you don't know there's a problem, that's fine. But the problem that we have is that I got a neighbor saying that he talked with you about this at length, about the kind of problem you had.
The only thing that we
And
found.
why wouldn't you, let's just talk about, okay, let's say that you had a bat problem in the siding and you had to install a bat door. Why did you even mention that much in the disclosure?
It was fixed.
Because it was fixed. But why wouldn't you mention that? Why wouldn't you mention that there had been an issue? Termite, insect, rodent, pest infestation problems? No. Let me see all your pictures.
This is the first photo of significant mushroom spore growth on the insulation itself.
Mushroom spore growth.
Yes, Your Honor.
Ugh. Okay,
That's
so
correct.
so there's spores and the mushrooms are growing out of the spores.
That's correct,
All
Your
right.
Honor. You have bat guano stains on the plywood. In every single one of the 42 joist bays existed this or greater amounts of pest feces. This is the screen that Mr. Cacase had replaced. And you can tell, Your Honor, from the left side
This is the back door we're talking about. That has nothing to do. Okay.
That's the
back
louver
door.
on the
back
side
cave.
of the
The entrance
house.
to the back cave. Okay, go ahead.
It was the back cave.
How do you
Your
know
Honor.
he replaced it and not the prior owners?
Like I said, Your
You
Honor,
don't
I
know.
would suspect.
Okay.
As you see, there is a differentiation between the types of boards that were used, which this holds up the actual screen itself, which was replaced by what I suspect
By somebody.
to be Mr.
You can't suspect. You
Case.
have no evidence to suspect that. You don't know who replaced that.
That's correct,
So
Your
you
Honor.
cannot look at that and say, oh, whoever replaced it could have seen this. That's not what we're talking about.
Yep.
Your best argument is your neighbor who wrote
Yes.
that affidavit, who says that he chatted with the two of them all about it, but that he didn't disclose it to you because he thought problem solved by the back door. Go
Your
on.
Honor. As you
Easter
see,
eggs. What are the Easter eggs doing in the?
The previous owners had kids.
I don't care. I have kids. I don't expect to find my Easter eggs. How did they get there?
Stored stuff up there. I don't
Yes.
know.
How did they get? Oh, I know how they got there. The bats and the rodents. They took them. They chomped on them and they took them to their places. That's bizarre.
There's some impressive bats. In Your Honor, this is just to the left of that screen. You can see there's 3 to 4 inches of bat guano. It's pretty disgusting. It's unsightly, and it's unsanitary.
How did your wife react to all this?
She didn't want to move into the house.
I actually wanted to turn it back and sell it. I wanted nothing to do with this. I was very concerned for our son's health.
All right, go ahead.
That's our friend, the dead bat, amongst many others. Again, this is a picture immediately to the right of that screen, and you'll see that there's 3 to 4 inches of bat guano. And this is what I discovered when I walked up into the attic space after my brother
I'm sorry,
started
stop.
the renovation.
So why didn't you see it when you inspected your house? Why didn't your inspector see it when he inspected your house? Did
I
your
wish he
brother
did.
look at the house when you were buying it in order to tell you what he could do to it? Why didn't he see it? Couldn't have been that visible. Go on.
This is an email from Mr. Case to Betsy Pertel, who's with me today.
Who is she?
I'm the realtor.
This is from the defendant to the realtor. Come on up. Who represented? Can you squeeze her in? Who represented whom?
I was representation for Jonathan and Lindsay.
Okay. This is an email from him to you.
Correct. He had his own agent as well.
And all of this I'm seeing just to see the bad blood between you guys, but that has nothing to do with rat feces.
Right.
And whether or not this is something that he knew about and misrepresented. And you guys are a little bit naive about stuff. I mean, let me just tell you, if we were to strip down the People's Court judge's home and look behind some walls, I'm sure we would find some very interesting things in there. It's a house. They're not a bubble. They're a house, and they can be intruded upon by nature. So what they do is they don't know it's your house. They don't understand trespassing. And then you got to pay to get them out. Everything has a solution. And in fact, what you guys did was you paid a bunch of money to some people to remove all of this out, put new insulation in. And what's purify the air? How did they purify the air?
Welcome back to the People's Court. Harvey Levin here. So, can this plaintiff get the cost of remediation, of getting rid of the bats and the rats, from the defendant?
Absolutely, I think he should. That should have been disclosed at closing.
Does it have to be disclosed, something like that?
Oh, yes, that definitely has to be disclosed. Definitely.
Is it material that there are rats and bats living in the house?
Yes.
Is it really? Have you ever seen Vampire Diaries? It's like a really common, right?
Yeah.
It's like a really common thing, right?
Yes.
Exactly. Going inside the courtroom.
They filter the air through, a HEPA filter, essentially an environmental filter. And they also scrub the walls down in the second story bedrooms and hallways. They also steam cleaned all the carpets. Furthermore, they also scraped up the 22 feet of 4-inch depth bat guano. Wow. It was a terrible experience.
Now you're angry. That's what happened, is that you're out there, your neighbor comes up to you and says, what are you talking about? He knew it all along, and you're angry. I understand. I agree with you that the sale of this home is as is. But what do I do with the affidavit from the neighbor who says he told you that there were, in fact, bats and rats in the attic, and that you told him that this house was in utter disrepair and needed a major renovation? What does the neighbor have to gain by providing this incredibly detailed affidavit of his conversations with you two?
Nothing, as far as I know.
Based on what I have heard, I think that the plaintiff has sustained their burden of proving that it is more likely than not that you knew of a problem that should have been disclosed in the disclosure form. I am awarding the plaintiffs the full $5,000, and I'm going to order you to pay it.
The plaintiff in this case has won the maximum award of $5,000 against you. What's your reaction to this?
I respect the judge's verdict, but I disagree with it. I had nothing to hide, and his pest inspector and home inspector should have found that out before they closed.
There's certainly a lot of evidence in there that you had some knowledge of some activity going on there. Should you have been more forthcoming with that knowledge that you did have?
In the whole 6 months that I owned the house, I never heard or saw anything inside the house.
Okay. All right. Right around this way. All right. So come on in. You win your case. You sustain your burden of proof. What's your feeling coming out here?
That the truth was told and the truth was heard.
Mm-hmm. That is some of the most disgusting evidence I think we've ever seen in here. How did you stand it?
Like I said, I didn't want to move into the house. I wanted nothing to do with the house. It was really crushed our first time home buying experience.
Mm-hmm. You wouldn't even set foot in there until it was...
No, and I still have not gone into the attic.
Oh, really?
Yep.
Will you?
Nope.
You're not going to... It's all cleaned up, right? Isn't it all good now?
I took steps to remediate, but
They're still staining.
All right.
My home
Good
is
luck.
permanently devalued.
Good luck.
Thank you.
Harvey.
Okay, you know what? This is fraud. It is withholding a material fact from the buyer. Period. That will do it for this case. Litigants for the next case on the way into the courtroom right now.